Close that door. Jefferson County Court at Law number 2 is now in session. The court is in session in 2 cases. Both cases are styled the state of Texas versus Daquan LeRae Johnson Manuel. First case is cause number 23CC-CR0294. Second case is cause number M3342266. Mr. Johnson, is your full name Daquan LeRae Johnson Manuel?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johnson Manuel, would you please raise your right hand? Mr. Johnson Manuel, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johnson Manuel, you may put your hand down. How are you doing?
Doing good.
That's good. Mr. Johnson Manuel, you're represented in this case by your attorney, Attorney Marvin Provo. Attorney Provo, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
State is represented in this case by Attorney Colby Hoffpar. Attorney Hoffpar, how are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Ms. Provo, do you waive a record in Mr. Manuel's case, his cases? Mr. Manuel, I have before me a cause number 23CCCR0294. And information, this information was filed by the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office. In this information, it alleges that on or about December 18 of 2022, while you were in Jefferson County, Texas, that you, Daquan LeRae Johnson Manuel, committed the Class B misdemeanor offense of terroristic threat. Mr. Johnson Manuel, do you understand what you've been charged with?
Yes, sir.
And to discharge, Mr. Johnson Manuel, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
No conflict.
Now, you're pleading no contest freely and voluntarily,
Yes, sir.
and are you pleading no contest because you do not wish to fight or contest the charges?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johnson Manuel, I have before me a document that is titled Misdemeanor Plea Admonishments. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
On page 2 of this same document, there are a set of initials DMJ on the line next to a box that check no contender, which means no contest. Did you place your initials on this document?
Yes, sir.
On page 3 of this same document, there is a signature above the line that's got a defendant. Is this your signature?
Yes, sir.
I also have a document that is titled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Right of Appeal. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
And is this your signature on the line that's titled Defendant?
Yes, sir.
There are 2 boxes that are checked at the top of this document. The first box that's checked states that this is a plea bargain case and you have no right of appeal. Do you understand that statement?
Yes, sir.
The second box that's checked states that you're waiving your right to appeal, which means you're giving up your right to appeal. Do you understand that statement?
Yes, sir.
I also have a document before me that is titled Discovery Certification. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
And is this your signature on the line that's titled Defendant?
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Johnson Manuel, before you signed and initialed these documents, did you read the documents?
Yes, sir.
And did your attorney go over these documents with you?
Yes, sir.
Did you understand everything that your attorney went over?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johnson Manuel, are you a citizen of the United States?
Yes, sir.
State, I have before me State's Exhibit number 1, the misdemeanor plea admonishment, and State's Exhibit number 2, the probable cause affidavit, which is in the court's file. State, would you like to offer States 1 and 2?
Yes, Your Honor.
No objection. State's Exhibits 1 and 2 are admitted. Ms. Provo, you've advised that counsel, Mr. Johnson Manuel, is there any evidence that he is currently mentally incompetent to stand trial? Mr. Johnson Manuel, your attorney, Ms. Provo, has advised and counseled you. Are you satisfied with her representation?
Yes, sir.
Has she provided full, effective, and competent legal representation?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johnson Manuel, I will accept your plea of no contest. I will find that you are mentally competent to stand trial. I will also find that your plea and waivers were freely and voluntarily given. I will also find that that there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. State, do we have a plea bargain agreement?
We do, Your Honor.
And what is that agreement?
In exchange for pleading guilty no contest, state degree recommend 120 days in Jefferson County Jail, court costs, permitting that's credit for 120 days. We ask it to be time served and taxable child and court costs.
Okay,
It also has to do like concurrent with the companion case.
okay, and that companion case is M 334-266.
Correct.
Mr. Manning,
Yes,
the
sir.
state is offering that you serve 120 days in Jefferson County Jail. You will not have to serve any more time in the Jefferson County Jail on this case because you've already served 120 days in Jefferson County Jail. Therefore, you'll be given credit for the time that you have already served on this case. The court costs in this case will be taxed and retired. And because you have already, the time that you spent in jail has already paid off the court costs in this case, therefore, you will not be required to pay the court costs and it will be taxed and retired. Mr. Johnson Manuel, do you understand the state's offer?
Yes, sir.
Do you think that the state's offer is fair and just?
Yes, sir. May I have one question? Would that mean my probation hold is lifted?
What do you,
If he's on, if he got felony, you got probation, that means your only thing that's holding you in here is these. And
Right.
taking care of these, so you'll
yeah,
be up, but you'll still be on probation, you'll be out of jail.
Okay, thank you.
okay. Now, let me do this. So Mr. Johnson Manuel, do you understand the state's offer?
Yes, sir.
Do you think that the state's offer is fair and just?
Yes, sir. Yes,
And do you accept the state's offer?
yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Johnson Manuel, I'll follow the plea bargaining agreement that you have entered into with the state. Mr. Johnson Manuel, we'll move on to your next case. And your next case is cause number M 334-266. And in that case, Mr. Johnson Manuel, I have before me information that was filed by the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office. And in this information, it alleges that you, Daquan LeRae Johnson Manuel, on or about December 27th of 2022, while you were in Jefferson County, Texas, that you committed the Class B misdemeanor offense of theft. Mr. Johnson Manuel, do you understand what you've been charged with?
Yes, sir.
And to this charge, Mr. Johnson Manuel, how did you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
No contest.
Now you're pleading no contest freely and voluntarily?
Yes, sir.
And are you pleading no contest because you do not wish to fight or contest the charges?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johnson Manuel, I also have before me a document that is titled Misdemeanor Plea Admonishments. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
This document is also labeled as State's Exhibit Number 1. On page 2 of this document, the set of initials D on a line next to the box is checking over contingent.
Yes,
Did you place your initials on this document?
sir.
On page 3 of the same document, there is a signature above the line that's titled Defendant. Is this your signature?
Yes, sir.
Also, Mr. Johnson Manuel, I have a document that is titled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Right of Appeal. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
And is this your signature on the line that's titled Defendant?
Yes, sir.
At the top of this document, Mr. Johnson, there are 2 boxes that's checked. The first box that's checked states that this is the plea bargaining case and you have no right of appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
The second box that's checked states that you're waiving your right to an appeal, which means you're giving up your right to an appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Johnson Manuel, I also have a document that is titled Discovery Certification. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
And is this your signature on the line that's titled Defendant?
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Johnson Manuel, before you signed and initialed all of these documents that I have just showed you, did your attorney, the provost, go over these documents with you?
Yes, sir.
And did you read and understand everything that Ms. Provo went over?
Yes, sir.
And is everything in these documents true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, sir.
State, I have before me State's Exhibit Number 1, the misdemeanor plea admonishment, and State's Exhibit Number 2, probable cause affidavit, which is in the court's file. State, would you like to offer State's 1 and 2?
Yes, sir.
Any objections?
No.
No objections. State's Exhibits 1 and 2 are admitted. And Ms. Provo, you've advised in counsel, Mr. Johnson Manuel, in this case, is there any evidence that he's currently mentally incompetent to stand trial? And Mr. Johnson Manuel, attorney, Ms. Provo has advised and counseled you in this case. Are you satisfied with her representation in this case?
Yes, sir.
Has she provided fully effective and competent legal representation?
Sir.
Mr. Johnson Manuel, I will accept your plea of no contest. I will find that you are in the competent trial. I will also find that your plea and waivers were freely and voluntarily given. I will also find that there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The court will take judicial notice of the probable cause affidavits that are in both cases. State, do we have a plea bargaining
We
agreement?
do, Your Honor.
And what is that agreement?
Exchange for a plea of guilty, the state plead guilty, no contest. State agreed to recommend 120 days in the Jefferson County Jail like court costs. He has on 20 days credit. We asked for time served and to tax the dollar court costs on the current previous case.
Okay, Mr. Johnson Manuel, the state is offering that you serve 120 days in the Jefferson County Jail. However, you will not be required to serve any more time in the Jefferson County Jail because you've already served 120 days in the Jefferson County Jail. Therefore, you'll be given credit for the time that you have already served. Court costs in this case will be taxed and retired. That simply means that you will not be required to pay the court costs because the time that you have spent in jail has already paid the court costs off. Therefore, it'll be taxed and retired. This case will run concurrent with cause number 23 CCCR 0294. Now, Mr. Johnson Manuel, this will conclude your case. If you do not have anything else holding you in jail, you should be getting out of jail today.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Johnson Manuel,
I'll get his fingerprint done. He's got his seat.
okay, stand in front of the clerk right here. She'll get your prints. Once you get your prints, and follow the bill.